Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is the first installment of a new series called Cinema Showdown, where I put two films against one another and see who survives. Now, before I go any further, I want to give a special shout out to Travis for requesting the topic that inspired this video. He asked me to compare the Gambler from 1974 to the remake from 2014. And initially, he just wanted me to talk about a few things or a couple specific things to compare. But I decided the best way for me to do that is to compare pretty much everything. And I thought that was a fun concept and a fun idea. And so I decided to run with it. And here we are. Now, if you have another topic or a film or a TV show that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to my PayPal or to my Patreon. The link to both will be in the video description down below, and I'll try to get to your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, I'm going to start out with a series of duels, individual duels between the two films. And after each duel, I'm going to award a point or award a victor for that individual battle. And then by the end of the video, I will then determine the the true victor and the winner of the showdown. And I'm going to start out comparing the directing. So in the 1974 film, it is directed by Carol Rice. And Carol Rice is a guy who he did a few things after this, like French Lieutenant's Woman that got a lot of praise. He also did a movie called Everybody Wins. I remember being pretty decent. And his direction in this is decent. It's not what I would call particularly dynamic. It's kind of run of the mill at times. There's some good looking shots here and there, like some of the shots of Alex in the casino and a few other moments here and there that really display the seedy atmosphere and the mood of the movie and the grit. But there's a lot of shots in this that are just kind of typical. Nothing particularly terrific or tremendous from a directorial standpoint. It's competent, but not anything that impressive. And I'm not going to say that the direction was bad, far from it. I think he did a good job directing the movie for what it is. It's a smaller scale film. It's definitely a movie that's relying a little bit more on a feel or a vibe than really much of anything else. And I do feel there's something to be said about the fact that the directing is willing to be as sleazy and as seedy as the film's overall plot is. It's willing to take that particular kind of risk, and there is something to be said about that. And I think it's direction that if you compare it to the directing from a lot of other movies, even for around the time, it's not really going to stand out that much, but it works. It's fine. It's adequate. It gets the job done. Now, the 2014 film is directed by a director named Rupert Wyatt. And I thought that Rupert Wyatt's direction was amazing. I thought he did a tremendous job directing this film. I thought this film looked great. The direction was very dynamic. It was very daring. Like there were a lot of risky camera angles and different perspectives and different types of filmmaking that were employed throughout this film. A nice use of slow mo. It was just a really impressive film from a technical standpoint, and particularly from the directorial point of view. Like I felt that Rupert really did a phenomenal job. He gambled a lot, and it paid off big time. And I think the direction in the Gambler remake is easily one of the best things about it, if not the best thing about the film. It's a movie that at the end of the day, I wasn't really that big on. I thought it was just kind of there, but the direction was something that immediately stood out to me. There, just from the very opening of the film down to the end of it, one of the main reasons why I was still intrigued and somewhat captivated by the film, despite not being into certain key elements of it, was was the direction. I thought the direction was just really strong and genuinely spectacular at times. So I would say the winner for this duel is without a doubt the remake. I think Rupert Wyatt's direction in the 2014 remake is much more impressive and definitely much more noteworthy than the direction of Carl Rice from the 1974 original. Now we get to the battle of the screenplays. And I'm going to start out with the 1974 original, which was written by James Toback. I think the script for the 1974 original is for the most part terrific. I think Toback did a really good job writing this film. And one of the things that really stands out when it comes to this script is just how daring it is and how unflinching it is when it comes to showcasing addiction and the effects of a gambling addiction on an individual or those around them. And I just like how the script doesn't pull any punches. Like it's a very edgy, sharp script. And I like that it provides Axel with a certain dynamic. It makes the character intriguing because of his flaws. And I like that it's not just focused solely on his flaws. Like it focuses on other things about him that make him a somewhat redeemable character or somebody that you don't necessarily root for, but you kind of want to see figure his shit out, you know? And that comes in the form of the scenes where he's a teacher. The way that those scenes are written, it genuinely does seem like he actually gives a shit and he likes teaching and he wants to be a mentor to some of these kids. And when he manipulates one of them who's a basketball player into this point shaving scheme by the end of the movie, it's something that's genuinely tragic because of this goodwill that's built up between him and his students. And the dissolution and the destruction of the relationship between him and this woman that he's falling for and he's really starting to love, and Billy is also very tragic and really um effective in terms of the emotional roller coaster, so to speak, that the script puts you on as a viewer, because it shows Axel at his best. You see him winning when he's with her. He's winning games. He's winning multiple bets at the casino. He's doubling his money, and you also see him lose. And at the end of the day, he winds up losing her because of his decisions and his inability to escape from his addiction. And I like that the script also features uh, a nice variety of different gambles and different types of gambling that Axel is taking part in. He's making bets with bookies on basketball games and other sports, but he's also going to the casino and he's throwing dice and he's playing cards. I like that. It really creates a nice balance of gambles that the gambler is making. And I also like the fact that the script really takes a different approach when it comes to the relationship between a gambler and his bookie. Like the stuff with him and Hips, they become friends. And that's another thing that makes the scenes near the end where everything just starts to fall completely apart and the walls start to close in on Axel and makes them all the more uh strong and effective when it comes to the storytelling, because it's now gotten so dire and so bad that even Axel's friend who is on the inside, even he's telling him, I can't help you. You're on your own. You fucked up. There's nothing I could do. And there's no one else for him to turn to. He can't turn to his rich uncle because his rich uncle has even declined to help him. Can't turn to his mother because he betrayed her trust. He took all this money from her because he lied to her and said that he was going to use it to pay his debts. But all he did is gamble it away. So now he's got no one else. And he's got to rely on this point shaving thing, and against all odds it works out. And you would think that, okay, the point shaving works out, he's back to square one, the film's going to end there, right? No, it doesn't. And that's one of the reasons why this script is so brilliant, because it has the balls to go to a place that is completely unexpected. And it's all centered around the reason why Axel gambles, which is another thing that I love about this script, is that it doesn't take a typical route in terms of explaining why he has this addictive personality, why he does what he does, which is he's addicted to the thrill. He's addicted to winning, specifically. Like he's addicted to the thrill of winning. Like he wants to win. But really, it's about him being addicted to the thrill of losing, and specifically the threat of losing it all, which I thought was really unique and very compelling. And the ending really hits home when it comes to this uh overarching theme throughout the script and the story. When I first saw this ending, initially I was taken aback by it and I was kind of like, what? That doesn't really fit. Like, that seems out of left field. But now that I think about it, it fits so well. And it's something that just makes this film into something that is a genuine classic to me because of this ending, because of this unexpected, daring, ballsy as hell ending, where Axel, after he finds a way to even his debts are paid, point shaving works out perfectly fine. He can't get the same thrill anymore out of losing or making a bad bet with a bookie or with the mob. He's been there. He's done that. So, in order for him to get that thrill that he's looking for, he's got to up the ante. So, he goes to a rough part of town, goes to a bar, gets a hooker, takes her to a room, asks her for sex, but then once he pays her, he takes the money back. So now, of course, she's understandably pissed, gets her pimp involved, and the pimp trying to get Axel to pay her back, but Axel refuses. And instead, he starts wailing on the girl which then leads to the pimp pulling out a switchblade and threatening to cut him. And this is all part of the game. This is all part of the gamble for Axel at this point. Because now he's not gambling with money, he's not gambling with bookies, he's gambling with his own life. It's the biggest gamble of all, potentially the biggest thrill of all, and one of the only ones he has left because he's gone through all these other gambles. And so he's he's got a knife to his throat and he's begging for the pimp to kill him. He's got putting it up to his neck as to do it. And the pimp is understandably freaked the fuck out. The pimp is like, this guy is fucking crazy. And he just refuses to do anything with Axel. He's like, I'm done. This guy's fucking nuts. The hooker, on the other hand, she's pissed. So she takes the knife, she gets involved in a fight with Axel, and she cuts his face. Because Axel, he's still trying to get that thrill. So now he can't get it from the pimp anymore because the pimp decided to just leave the room. So now he's going after the hooker again. And then she takes the knife, cuts him. At that point, I think he's realized he's gotten what he was looking for. Because he doesn't necessarily want to die, it seems like. He just wants to get on the edge. He wants to get as close to the edge of dying as he can at this point, because that's like the biggest thrill. And so the last shot of the film is him looking in a mirror and just admiring his cut up face. He has this smile on his face, this smirk, because he got it. He gambled with his life and he got what he was looking for. He got what he wanted out of it. He got that thrill again. And I love that. I thought it was so brilliant, unexpected, and just really something genuinely special when it comes to this kind of story. So, yeah, I thought Toback did a tremendous, just really amazing job with this script in so many different ways. And in large part, one of those ways is absolutely the ending. Like, the ending is just so, in my opinion, iconic in a lot of ways because it's just so ballsy and unique and daring and just something you don't really see that often. Now, the script for the remake is by William Monahan, and it's based on the script by James Toback. And I think it's massively inferior to the screenplay by Toback in a multitude of different ways. And the reason for that is it makes too many bad bets. There are times where it makes a good gamble and it pays off, like the opening scenes. I think it does a good job setting things up, setting up the character of Jim, showing him in an underground casino, winning these card games, and then making a really bad bet and then losing it all. It really does display the kind of character that he is. He's a disillusioned loser, trust fund baby who is gambling with all this money and has been given everything. So he's just gotten to the point where he just doesn't give a shit anymore. So I think that's an effective way to introduce that character. I think the stakes being raised higher when it comes to his bets and the sheer amount of them and the money that he owes is handled well in this script. I like the fact that there's a timeline now. It's not so vague. Now it's like, oh, you've got 7 days. You got to figure it out. And there were timelines too in the original, to be fair. But the way that things are set up in the script for the remake the timeline is more of a focus. And so it does add a little bit of extra added suspense. And I feel that suspense would be a hell of a lot more effective if the script didn't make so many other bad bets, but I will still give the script credit for that. I think some of the other ways that some of the supporting characters are written, I think works. Like Frank, the character played by John Goodman, he had a lot of great quotes, a lot of great scenes. The stuff involving in a lot of ways, the Hips character, Neville, I thought worked. The script, it basically combined Neville with the other mob boss guy and the original who confronted Axel in the dank, dingy room and got him to do the point shaving. Um, but I thought that worked. I didn't mind the attempt to try to have a different approach to the love story when it comes to Jim and Amy, and it not just being the same rough and tumble sort of fling that the original screenplay had. Um, but it's still rather generic in terms of the way that it's written and the way that things play out. And I like the ending, at least the concept, the idea of the ending of Jim making this big bet and it paying off, and him actually, despite all the odds against him, making things even and no longer being in debt, and him learning a lesson and deciding to be a better man and do the right thing. And I like that. I think it's rather effective in theory, but in execution, not so much. And that really ties in to just more of these bad bets that the scriptwriter makes. And the biggest bad bet of all is the way that Jim is written as a character. He's insufferable. He is so irritating, he's obnoxious, he's pretentious, and he's a trust fund baby. And he's also an asshole. There's nothing about this character that's likable, let alone redeemable. There's no reason to root for him. There's no reason to care about a redemptive arc. So that was a huge mistake when it comes to the script, because there's no reason to care. Why should you give a shit about Jim? He's pretentious. He's an asshole. He's so disillusioned to the point of it being ridiculous and a parody. And there's nothing about him that's remotely likable. He's got an awful personality. He doesn't give a shit about life or anyone. And it's to the point where it's like, who gives a shit what happens to this guy? Who gives a shit whether or not he winds up in a hole in the Las Vegas desert somewhere? Like, who gives a fuck? Who cares if he pays his debt off? Who cares about any of this? So it really affects the suspense that the story and the script is trying to build, where, oh, he's got a deadline, he's got 7 days, he's got to figure this shit out, he's got to pay off this guy, he's got to pay off Lee in this time, otherwise he's dead. Who cares? There's no reason to care. You don't care whether or not he dies. So the pacing of the story is affected greatly. Also, you don't care about the love story because you don't really want to see him get love, because it doesn't seem like he really deserves it. And also, if the love story was effective enough and like the relationship with Amy like flipped a switch somehow and it actually stuck, that would be one thing. But it doesn't. I think there's an attempt to try to do that in the script, but it does not land and it does not work for me. And that's why you have an ending that's hopeful and redemptive and is a 180 from the ending of the original, which I think was a good idea. You don't want to just copy the original because that's pointless. But it has no impact. It has no weight to it because it happens to a guy who doesn't earn it. And another thing about the script that I think is a bad bet is the kind of bets that you see in the script. They are very repetitive. Like in the original, you had more of a variety of bets that the gambler would make. Here, it's just mostly card games, maybe roulette once or twice, maybe one sports game that he bets on. That's it. Also, I think it was a bad idea to just copy and paste the point shaving angle and the whole stuff with the teacher and the student who's also a basketball player. That just felt incredibly played out, and it was just lazy. That whole portion of the script was unbelievably lazy. And another really bad bet that the writer made was to just have so many scenes and so many moments in the script that are just overloaded with dialogue, just too dialogue heavy, like to the point where it was just obnoxious, like this fucking cat hair that won't go away on the top of my fucking hat. It's obnoxious like that. It's that fucking annoying at times because it's just so pretentious, it's so long-winded. The scenes in the college in particular involving Jim trying to teach his class, those were just cringe inducing to sit through. So yeah, it's a script that there are a few elements that work or are at least kind of okay, but it's all pretty much undone by a series of bad bets by the writer. So for me, it's an easy one when it comes to this duel. The winner by a large margin is the original. It's the 1974 film. It's James Toback's script. Now, when it comes to the battle of the casts, it's a battle that, let's just say, is interesting. Now, the 1974 original, it features a really solid cast, but without a doubt, the best performer is James Caan. James Caan as Axel Freed is fantastic. Just a phenomenal performance, the kind that is just incredibly gripping, and he's searing in this, and it's just a really good performance of a character that in a lot of ways is very flawed and has a lot of things about him that are not very likable, let alone things that are admirable. But the way that Khan plays this character, it, he does it with a certain charm, and it just makes everything work. Despite how unsavory this character is in a multitude of different ways. And the fact that this performance is just so gripping really does lend itself to Khan's talent as an actor. The rest of the cast is good too. I mean, Paul Sorvino is hips. It was fun to see him play this kind of role where he's a part of the mob, but he's not really the boss. So he's able to have some fun with it a little bit more, not necessarily be as serious, be as straight. He's not trying to be intimidating because that's not the point of the character. And I felt that he and James Caan had some really good chemistry. You really bought that the two became friends. Uh, Lauren Hutton, she's amazing. She does a really honorable job as Billy. Uh, Honestly, kind of a difficult role in a lot of ways because there's not a ton of depth to this character, but she still makes the character feel very real. And the scenes with her and James Caan, even though you know from the start that it's pretty much a doomed relationship, you really do feel that this is this is a couple that has some genuine love for one another, and they really do want to make things work, and she really does love him. So then when he betrays her and he just completely screws things over and treats her badly, it's something that is really emotionally powerful because of what Lauren Hutton brings to that role. You also have Burt Young, plays one of the other bookies named Carmine. Vic Tayback, he plays the guy who is essentially the lead bookie, the guy above the bookies that the mob hires to really set things straight with the gamblers if they don't pay everyone back. M. Emmett Walsh has a little bit role as a gambler in Las Vegas. James Woods is in this as a snooty bank officer. So it was kind of fun to see James Woods when it comes to an early role from him. You also have Stuart Margolin, who plays a cowboy. Antonio Fargas, he plays the pimp. Huggy Bear himself, he plays the pimp in the climactic scene. You also have Morris Karnofsky, who plays A.R. Lowenthal. Um, yeah, for the most part, it's a solid cast. But really, the biggest standout performer is James Caan. Now, the remake, it's got some bigger names, I would say, but not necessarily the same quality overall, not the same results. Mark Wahlberg, for instance, I think he's the right guy for the right film. That's my feeling on Mark Wahlberg. I don't think he's necessarily a bad actor, but I do think for the most part he's more mediocre than anything else. And if you don't have the right role for him, his mediocre talent as an actor really shows, and not in a good way. It becomes very glaring. And I think his role in this is one of those things. First off, it's just not believable in the slightest that Mark Wahlberg, Marky Mark and his Funky Bunch, is a college professor. It's not believable. It comes across like it's just fake and inauthentic. And he's trying. I'll give him credit. He says his lines, he memorized his lines, he says the lines, but you just don't buy it. You don't buy that he's an intellectual. You don't buy that he's this college professor. It's not believable. I think they really should have taken a different direction when it comes to the story. I didn't mention this when I was talking about the script because I was just trying to compare them as is, but I think it would have been a good idea to have Mark Wahlberg play a different type of character. Why does he have to be a college professor? Why? He could be anything. He could be a basketball coach. He could be, you know, literally anyone else. I think that would make things more interesting because it's not just another, oh, it's a guy who works as a teacher and then also gambles. Like, you don't have to do the same thing. It's not necessary. So, and it would honestly speak to Mark Wahlberg's strengths more and be more believable because it's just not believable. I'm sorry, I don't believe Mark Wahlberg is a college professor. Do I buy him as a gambler who makes bad bets? Yeah. Do I buy him as a guy who's disillusioned and doesn't give a shit? Yeah. But I just don't buy that this other aspect of the character that is so prominent throughout the film. Also, I don't think Mark Wahlberg is a talented enough actor overall or charismatic enough when it comes to playing a completely disillusioned asshole to make the character work. So what you have is at best an average performance and at worst a pretty laughable one to me personally. I definitely don't think Mark Wahlberg shines in The Gambler, at least not to me personally. Maybe when he's running around and saying no lines of dialogue, but when it comes to him saying a ton of dialogue, it's pretty rough to watch. John Goodman, though, as Frank, as much as I liked Servino and I didn't mind some of the other supporting roles like Burt Young or Vic Tayback in the original, John Goodman was a house of fire in this. He was a powerhouse as Frank. He was just great in every scene. Uh, the film became considerably better every time that he showed up in this movie because his performance is that good. So, yeah, John Goodman, cannot say enough good things about him when it comes to his performance as Frank in the remake. Brie Larson, Brie Larson. Like, Lauren Hutton versus Brie Larson, it's no contest. Like, it's not even close. Like, this is even pre Captain Marvel Brie Larson, and she's trying to play this quirky college girl, and it's just a prime example of miscasting. It's hard to watch when she's trying to be quirky. It's laughable. And then when it comes to the scenes where she's being angry or frustrated, or the scenes where she's supposed to have romantic chemistry with Mark Wahlberg, it's also a joke. And you really did get the vibe that she just didn't. She was just disinterested and had no passion for this. And it just makes for a very lame and just forgettable performance by Brie Larson as Amy. Michael K. Williams, though, as Neville, I thought he was magnificent. I thought he was really good, charismatic, had a mean edge to him, mean streak that I liked. Um, had good chemistry with other members of the cast. Jessica Lange as Jim's mother, I think she was strong. Not a very big role, but she made the most of what little that she had. Um, I would say that she was ultimately a better performer than the actress who played the mother in the original, Jacqueline Brooks, at least for me. Um, yeah, I like some of the other performances, like Andrea Brower as Dean, Anthony Kelly as Lamar. Pretty much a wash when it comes to his performance versus the other actor who played the basketball player in the original. Pretty much on the same level. Uh, Alvin Ing as Lee. Thought he was pretty solid. Steve Park, he was in it as two. I almost didn't recognize him. And I want to mention Steve Park because Steve Park was in Living Color. And I didn't really see him in a lot. So now that I look at his name in the credits, it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun to have that realization that Steve Park was in this. Almost makes me want to watch it again. At least fast forward to the scenes that he's in just to see his performance. Um, but yeah, it's not the worst cast in the world, but I don't think it's a great cast. It's got some great bit roles like John Goodman and some other solid performances like Michael K. Williams and Jessica Lange. But the two that have the most screen time are, for the most part, either incredibly flat or pretty terrible. So yeah, when it comes to the battle of the casts, I got to give it to the original again. I got to give it to the 1974 film. Now, when it comes to the other technical aspects, cinematography, editing, um, the cinematography by Victor J. Kemper and the editing by Roger Spottiswoode in the original, I think they're effective. I think their job's well done. I think the film definitely doesn't look like anything that has any obvious rough edges from a technical standpoint, but it's also nothing that really has that wow factor that you get from other films when it comes to the cinematography or the editing. And that's something that the remake definitely doesn't lack. I would say the 2014 remake, it is really a feat when it comes to these technical aspects of the production. It really ties into the direction. I think the direction was really great, and I think the other technical aspects of the film are also really good. So when it comes to the cinematography, which I thought was just absolutely stunning at times by Greg Fraser. Um, and the editing by Pete Bodrow, especially the editing. Like there are some really ambitious shots in that film, and I really feel that the editing just ties everything together so well, and makes all the gambles visually really pay off. So when it comes to this this battle, goes to the remake. So the last thing that really is going to determine it is something I like to call the entertainment factor. And what that is what story, what film, what combination of elements lead to a more entertaining film. And the 1974 film, it's not perfect. There are some moments where the darker tone can be a little oppressive, but it makes up for it because of its willingness to go places that are unexpected and because of just a really great central lead performance by James Caan. Now, the 2014 remake, it's more impressive technically. It features more dynamic and dazzling direction, and it takes a lot of gambles in that area, but it doesn't take as many gambles in the story uh, arena, or it really doesn't make a lot of good bets when it comes to uh, the script overall, as well as other key uh, elements of a film to me. And while it's moderately entertaining at times and just is something that'll at least keep your interest for a couple hours, it doesn't really feel like something that really pays off in the end. So, despite the bleak nature of the 1974 film and its just dark as hell ending, which normally isn't the kind of thing that I'm super fond of, I gotta give the winning shot, the final shot, so to speak, to end the showdown to the 1974 original. So, anyway, thanks for watching the debut episode of Cinema Showdown. And yeah, I would recommend checking out the 1974 original with James Caan sometime. I think it's definitely worth a watch. Definitely worth your time. The remake's also worth a watch too if you want to see a good John Goodman performance, even though he's not really in it a lot, and to see some nice uh, direction by Rupert Wyatt and some good usage of some songs and music. I thought about maybe including that too, but I didn't want to have too many categories to kind of muddle things up. I wanted to have things be okay. We got categories, then we get to the fifth one. That's the final shot. That's what determines uh, the winner. But anyway, thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.